It is Sunday, November the 29th, 2015, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in America. I'm Grantham Taylor Hughes for my show, The Grantham Taylor Hughes Show, with my guest host each week, Gabriella Foster. Hi, Gabriella.
Hello,
I was doing so well. I had my best disc jockey voice on and everything, and stumbled over your name. Now, I'm only saying that's really impossible to do, but I just did that. The tongue twister, right? Gabriella. Can I just call you Ann or something?
My name's not Ann.
Oh, okay. Well, that takes care of that, right?
Right. Unless I could call you Sam.
Oh, Sam? Well, Grant is not hard to say. I prefer Grantham, but if I can get Grant or Hey You, I'm lucky. See what I mean? I go by Hey You a lot. Hey You, get out of the way. They actually know I have four names. Hey You, get out of the way. Oh, wait a minute, get out of the way. That's four names, right? Get out of the way.
Okay.
Actually, that's five, right? See, I can't spell and I can't count, so I'm doing really well, right?
No, it's six names. Hey, you, get out of the way. That's seven.
Oh, that's six,
seven
right.
names. You actually have seven names if you count the preposition.
Okay, see, we did our job. We got the joke out of the way. Because I stumbled over your name, and that was funny, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was on pins and needles because I had my really great DJ resonant voice and then blew it, right? Well, maybe if these ever get syndicated, people will have a lot of fun with it in the future. It'll be like old Star Trek. It didn't get popular until 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
So we're moving on 10 years of our show. I'm pretty sure we're probably into the ninth year. Pretty. I think so.
Yeah. Did we start 2007?
Well, yeah. So we'll be moving into the ninth year, I guess, coming up here shortly. In March, I think. March of 2007. Pretty sure. Well, okay. Each week we try to cover the Geneva Convention if we ever get to it. Correct. The bankruptcy, that is. We don't really do the whole convention because it's sometimes hard to decipher when they were going over the bankruptcy. If you ever get the opportunity to read minutes, which I have some blurbs from it, but I don't have the entire minute. It's just mostly talking about Uniform Commercial Code and what that brings to the table regarding remedy, the remedy in the courtroom that I painstakingly try to talk to people about. In the UK, it's a real problem because, albeit they're the ones that actually wrote the UCC as a template from the Admiralty Equity Law and starting after the bankruptcy, but then they are the first ones to deny it in the courtroom, ironically, wouldn't you say? And since they're the ones that are the authors, and then they condemn it. And isn't that rather interesting?
Well, don't all the judges deny it in the courtroom anyway, even in this country?
Right, absolutely. Well, see, but the weird part is in the UK, the Lawyers Guild of London are the writers of the Uniform Commercial Code. So think about that. Their own country, they're the authors. Yeah. And then they are the first. Yeah. Well, no, they still do that. They rewrite it periodically. And
they do?
What?
Okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Well, in 2004, they amended 1-208 from 1-207. That had the language in the limited liability, we're not liable for the limited liability of a compelled benefit, which I liked an awful lot and kind of a tongue twister. At the same time, it meant we're not liable for debt. In other words, the money's debt, we're not liable for it. Even though we use this purchasing power, technically it's illegal to use it if you challenge it. Because, see, you can't wield debt in a monetary system. You're supposed to be wielding credit. So you can't buy something with something that's not a credit-worthy instrument. If it's debt, how do you purchase something? See, how does it have power if it's debt? Think about how silly that is. They're passing debt papers around and you're getting goods and services for debt. See, that's really an unlawful practice, and challengeable by law, but no one does it because everybody does it. It's kind of like prohibition when they were in America when they were condemning drink, right? But everybody was doing it anyway, so they had to repeal their silly amendment that they had on it. The whole mandate of the people causes action by governments, and at the same time they do no action. It's like the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. Hello, in America, does anybody do it? Well, you even talked to a policeman a while back and said, well, they allow people to go 10 miles over, and they only pull people over when they go jackrabbit inside and out of the lanes and whatnot. But you yourself, they stated it that they drive 10 miles and over, they don't bother you, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, because it looks like everybody's driving 15 or 20 miles over for the most part.
Well, sure, if you drive 55, you better be in the slow lane because you're going to be run over by trucks and everybody else honking at you, and it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And the minimum used to be you could drive 40. Heaven forbid if you'd ever drive the minimum in the slow lane. At 40, I've never seen anybody driving 40, right?
No, you don't see that.
Impossible. If you can drive 55, people are going by you doing 85 and 90. So what does that mean? I mean, to articulate some of these actions that we know that are supposedly the rules of the road are completely obliterated. I mean, don't get me started on that. I can talk hours and hours of the driving skills of people and the so-called driving rules or whatever. So that of itself shows kind of an Iron Age time where the obliteration of rules don't mean anything because people don't obey anything. So it's an idea of just like the monetary system, is there balance in it? Well, we can still buy things. There's still purchasing power. We can still buy things with the money and go and get our goods and services, however wrong it is, in reference to the documents themselves being foul. Nobody cares about that. I mean, we've talked about in and around that for years, correct?
Yep, that's true. So,
are you from Texas?
I'm from Texas.
Are you going to rope that steer pretty soon?
Why? What did I say? Because I said yep.
Yep. You said yep.
Yep. Yeah.
See, for those people around the world, yep is from Texas. We say yep down there in Texas.
Well, I think there are people in other parts of the country that might say yep.
I'm gonna get a bunch of bad email that I have to field, and they politely won't say, "How can you allow your guest host to make fun of us in the South?" So you hate mail from all these people, right? From all the audience from Texas.
I'm not pinpointing the Texans. I make fun of a lot of people.
Oh, I see. Well, that way, if you do it internationally, then it's hard to get a targeted enemy, so to speak.
That's true.
Yeah, you diversify your ridicule, right?
Right.
Diversification of ridicule on this show. What?
The point is, it's so difficult to be politically correct in this country that it's just impossible. It's impossible. You make a mistake.
Remember that goes back to the 1920s and the Wilson administration. So we can't give credit to the Clintons or any of the present nomenclature. It goes pretty far back, that political correctness business, Mm-hmm. So we should give historical kudos or whatever, or condemnation to the source, and considering the source, as they say in the university, according to one of my group's people this morning mentioned. And I've always said that you have to consider the source of the beginnings of things. That's why even on this show, I try to target 1930 as the beginning times of our present situation in politics. And that's why I say the Geneva Convention, because that's where they declared a bankruptcy internationally. And so we're still living in the results of that, because of that bankruptcy. because the money is called the Federal Reserve note. We still have that. We still wield that in our daily practice in America. However, there are other countries that have different currencies. The way that they're considered debt is they have to be converted to USD, US dollars, when they're traded on the market, on the banking market, bank trading. They have to be converted to USD. So once they're converted to that, then that proves that all the currencies are under the umbrella of a debt currency called the Federal Reserve note. And therefore that's proof, best evidence. I know it's kind of a private evidence in terms of private primary banking, not prime banks, but primary banking in that realm. And however, there is documented proof. The documented proof is really in the pocket, in the purse of the person, in reference to the money itself. That's really the best proof, because it shows it. People know what the word note means in banking. We know it's debt. Everybody can agree to that. Okay, however, illogical arguments that come up, it's not really illogical to say you can buy things with it. We know that. But that's a daily practice. But the concern, from my concern, is that debt piles up and it goes on ad infinitum. And I know the Keynesian philosophy in the mid-40s, that it didn't really matter how high the debt went, because it's just a number that means very little to the government because they're supposedly in power. But in reality, the bankers are in power because they create the money. You see? So, but I'm always trying to explain that the credit worthiness is in a vault. And it's not a metaphor. It's not metaphorical at all. That it's behind a door. Quite literally, it's in a vault, because the MT-103s are vaulted and not used in the marketplace. And that means a medium-term 103, the banking jargon, is the only credit instrument. So there is a credit-worthy society, but it's locked up, so to speak. Outside the vault, we have debt instruments. And then people say, well, why can't we do a credit-worthy instrument? And I keep saying on my UK call in the mornings, on Sunday mornings, I keep saying that, excuse me, I created a word today. I created a neologism. You weren't on that political show. I call it, what was it, omni-currency. Omni-currency? I think it was that way. I'll remember. I put omni in front of the, omni-mathematics, I call it, meaning an approximate mathematics that would allow our country or international scene to become solvent. But we can't be solvent unless we have an approximate mathematics, so I call it omni-mathematics. You like that? It's a neologism I create. You could call it neo-mathematics, like new mathematics, but I kind of like omni-mathematics.
Doesn't omni mean all? Isn't omni really mean all?
Yeah, but it means all in terms of encompassing just approximation, too. Okay. So that omni-mathematics would be approximate math, that if we had that, then we would become solvent immediately, but we don't have it. The bankers don't agree to it. So the solvency of the third plank of my platform, the bankruptcy platform of solvency, could come about if we have omni-mathematics. And after said, I created a neologism this morning with my UK group, and I call it omni-mathematics, approximate mathematics. But we don't have that. See, the bankers won't agree on it because they have to count every penny. Otherwise, they send out the overdrafts. And then they do a bankruptcy about every 70 years, which is kind of an overlay to the 1930 Geneva Convention that I say is really the starting point because of the results that we have in the marketplace of the debt currency that we use. So that is the issue, is that we do have the debt situation, but nobody cares because they still drive 80 miles an hour in a 55, right? You see what I mean? It's just the same segue to the whole thing. And a glib statement regarding that nobody's really paying attention to the speed limit, and they don't pay attention to the fact that they're wielding debt. You see the parallel with that in terms of the analogy?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sure.
Are you
trying
sure that
to get that analogy. I understand that nobody's paying attention in either case, but I don't really get the connection between driving with the speed limit and the debt for credit.
Well, that's the connection. The connection, they're not really paying attention. They don't care.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Okay.
Except for the ones that get caught doing 100 and a 35. And the people on their call know who I'm talking about.
It's not me, folks. Just in case you're wondering, it wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't Gabriella, but anyway, but the joke is, I mean, even if you want to pass somebody that was doing 55, you got to boost it up to at least 80 to do it. I mean, you got to rev it up to pass. You can't, because the people around you are going so fast. And if you get up in New York, just forget it. Those guys are driving 100 all over the place. If you buy a Bugatti, I guess you could drive about 300.
I don't know. I've heard the worst drivers I've heard are up in Boston.
Oh, is it Boston? Well, when I went to Boston, Boston, maybe the traffic's bad, but the language, the vernacular, I used to have a translator. I couldn't understand the people up there. They're from a different world.
You don't understand the Boston accent. You don't understand the Boston accent.
Are you going to try to do one of those too?
No, because I can't do the Boston accent or the New England accent. I don't know. I know two people from Boston, and they don't really have a Boston accent. So I don't know if they're transplants or what. But anyway.
Well, as long as they don't have a knee transplant, that's cool. Don't get me started on that stuff. I'll tell you.
I won't.
The Frankensteinian practices these days, in terms of taking for granted, let's go and replace all your hip and your joints with artificial ones. Right. So just the idea that the solvency issue really can't happen, and then we have to remain with remedy at UCC. You see what I mean? Because of that, we're going to be pretty much locked into a bankruptcy ad infinitum. And then there's a concern with that. But then I'm saying, well, you have remedy with the law if you wield it, and I always say you have to believe in it, because you got the courts, and especially because I have to hear it all the time from my UK people, that they just completely deny it, and they don't really have there's really no joy a lot of times in the UK situation. And that becomes a big issue for them because they don't have experiences with it. They have real issues there. So I have to field a lot of that with the people I know in the UK that have a difficulty because they can't get an experience. So therefore, it's hard to their belief factor is limited with that. And then I understand that. I mean, I'm a firm believer in experience. Experience is very important to concretize belief. I mean, we can talk about a lot of things, but if you can't put it into practice, then it's a lot of hot air, so to speak. And it is, really. I guess we're using a lot of hot air when we're speaking, right?
I suppose that could be, there could be an argument for that.
Oh, you're using cold air instead of hot air?
I don't know. I'm trying to use room temperature air. Well, wouldn't it be around 70 degrees, right? That's not cold air. No, it's not cold air. It's a good temperature. No, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Sorry, everybody. Oh, you have no idea? Well, you're doing a pretty good job, though, for not having a clue, right? Yeah, well, there's something to be said for that. And when I figure out what that is, I'll let you know. Well, then you're a great politician, as they would say, in terms of your skilled casuistry, as I would put it. But my theory is that they're really trying to make sense, but most people don't understand it, so then they condemn them for not really, or speaking in nonsense terms. Maybe
I really have never heard a politician that doesn't make an effort, albeit they do that. They have speech writers that do the flamboyant, platitudinal stuff. A chicken in every pot, and shaking hands with everybody, and all the business that they do in reference to God bless America and all that. I mean, that's okay. It's very positive, but ultimately it's kind of silly if they go down the street. So some of the homeless people aren't in the good enough shape to say that. That's for sure. However, if you give them money, they're the first ones to be very, very happy that you've done so. See, I mean, very grateful to that, to people, and I respect that a great deal. However, the politicians in all of their loftiness and speechwriter jargon and the glibness that they throw at you. Well, I mean, maybe not so glib and more behind the scenes than on the podium. Let's put it that way. I mean, they pretty much simplify some of that stuff, but they weave things and spin a jargon that tries to make the public happy. And I understand that entity, but what I don't understand is there's very little truth in the matter. See, and that's the troubling part. That's why I'm always saying you got theory, law, and practice. In practice, there's very little law that's wielded, and there's very little truth theory that's wielded. It's just, like I said, platitudes that in this time of year, in the holiday seasons, it gets even worse in terms of platitudes and all the stuff that they bring about Christmas cheer and all that business. I'm not trying to throw out a bunch of negativity and what have you. I'm just saying if they would target more of the realities, it would be much healthier. It would be like I have, there's a lot of spin-off groups from what I've been talking about over the years that have claimed me as an advisor and things of that nature. And I haven't given them any permission to do that because they come to some of my forums and then they get a little bit of information. They run off and try to create a whole paradigm shift. And then they come back to me and they're asking me for my help. And then maybe for about 2 minutes, but then I never talk to them. And then all of a sudden I'm an advisor on some sort of transcript or what have you, or some kind of trust acknowledgments or what have you. And I haven't signed anything or given any permission, but it happens a lot. And I don't care. I'm not here to sue people. I don't have time for all that. But see, that's the sad part about it is that people, I would say when you get past a certain age, the slit under your nose starts flapping, and here comes once you're, I would say past 50, and then, look out, here we go. And, I'm in the same group, so to speak. But again, I'm trying to be accountable for what I say, and I think it has some worthiness to it because I'm trying to connect the dots as opposed to people that run with things and really don't know what they're talking about need to be in my classroom. I even wrote an email even before the show tonight to someone that I'm referring to that have done a spin-off trust group or what have you, and then they think they're going to take over the world or something, and that's their attitude. But coming off as very beneficent and goodly and showing a lot of a website done really well and a lot of gloss and fancy stuff, and it's just, and there's a scripture term that shows shiny tombstones full of dead man's bones. I made that quote even earlier, and because it is when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, it's just a load of nonsense. You see, so I mean, I've seen a lot of groups and companies and what have you that have given me provisions and company articles and what have you, and it's a load of bollocks. It really is. It's just rubbish, and it doesn't take me long to decipher it. I remember many years ago, probably back at least 20 years ago, maybe longer, I was given a trust class, and one of the group came to me during an intermission and asked me to critique a trust he had purchased from somewhere else, and within about 5 minutes I had 6 major points of flaws in it, and the guy had spent like $20,000 for the document. I said, you better go back and get your money. So I was actually instrumental in getting a lot of people's money back from this certain group will go nameless, and they're long gone anyway. I think they were sued out of business. But they really, it was just awful. I mean, they didn't even have, one of the main flaws, I dropped my earpiece, so I went off for a second or two.
Did you say your hairpiece or your earpiece?
Yeah, thank
Are you there?
Just for the record, I don't have, can you hear me?
Yes. Did you say hairpiece or earpiece?
What did you say? My hairpiece?
Is that what you said?
No, for the record, everybody, I don't have a hairpiece. Thank you, Gabriella, for that. I have all my own hair, and it's very healthy. So, God, now I'm in trouble. See what I mean? Thanks a lot. God, we don't pay you enough over there. It sounds like to me. I don't pay my guest host enough. It was an easy knock, right? It was an easy knock, right?
Yes.
So now I can't remember. I was saying I was instrumental in doing something, and I forgot what I was talking about.
People's money back for them buying the trust that wasn't correct. That was an incorrect.
Oh yeah,
trust.
I was instrumental in getting a lot of people's money back, and also is instrumental in putting them out of business. And what I was saying, one of the major flaws in the instrument is they didn't even have a trust certificate. You see what I mean? Which the whole trust is based upon the certificate. It's a fidelity ceremony. But you see, a lot of these inferior trusts forget about the certificate, and buried in maybe the 15th page, one of the trusts had a certificate of good standing, right? Like a good house keeping seal of approval or something. So I said, if I stand up straight and tall, that's a good standing certificate, right? But we know what standing is in business and what have you. I mean, it's just a language of contract, basically, of control, and they use the language of ownership in terms of the good standing. And I know it, but I made a joke out of it. But you see, they didn't even have the main document, and so it's ridiculous. And most of these, I call it an inferior trust, are completely and totally wrong. And they were selling these things for $50,000 to unsuspecting people that knew nothing about it. And that's what's out there. That's the nonsense that's out there. When they're not following proper contract provisions, I'll say. All right, we're getting down close to the end. Did you have any comments you'd like to say this afternoon or this evening?
Yes, I do have a comment. Grantham Taylor Hughes does not wear a hairpiece. He does use an earpiece on his phone, but he does not wear a hairpiece. So I did want to clear that up just in case people were taking me seriously. And if you are taking me seriously tonight, then I apologize, because I should not have been taken seriously for anything that I've said this evening.
And he doesn't have a Zimmer frame or a cane or one of those mini machines, or those mini carts or something like that. Yeah. He doesn't use the disabled parking spaces. Right.
Yeah.
It just gets worse, doesn't it? Because people don't pay any attention. They just hear all this stuff, and then they believe it, right? I have to stow away my Zimmer frame, right? Yeah. And I do not walk, I can't even speak now. I stumbled at the beginning, I'm stumbling at the end. I don't walk slowly in those crosswalks with a Zimmer frame, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you for being on the show, Gabrielle. I appreciate your help each week.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I did need a lot of help this week. And my stammering there at the end there, I do apologize for that. But I am getting elderly. Think about that. How long can you do it? Well, Johnny Carson was on pretty, I think it was 65 or something, maybe. I don't remember. All right, well, thank you, Journeyman, for being on the show this week. And thank you for the new people that will be here, that are here and will listen to the archives and what have you. I always have a great deal of fun delivering the message. It's mainly not a pretty one in terms of bankruptcy, but we try to build some levity into people's days a little bit. So I hope we were educational. All right, this is Grantham Taylor Hughes. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.